Hello, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Brandon Leanne, and I'm current graduate student at California State University, East Bay. The topics of conversation on this podcast are historians and their facts. The quotes from this podcast are from the book In Defense of History by Richard J. Evans. The reason why I chose this topic was that in the current political environment that Americans are living through, I feel it only obvious that anyone could choose to look at these facts and truths and how historians use to display them in history. The outline of this podcast is to be based on readings and analyzing quotes from Richard J. Evans' fourth chapter of his book, which is titled Historians and Their Facts. Because we are living in a time in which truth and facts are getting attacked on a daily basis, it might be a good idea to revisit what a historical fact is. According to Evans' book, a historical fact is something that happened in the past, which has left traces of documents which could be used by historians to reconstruct the past. To perform this operation successfully, as Evans says, the historian had, in the first place, to shred all prejudices and conceptions and approaches the documents with a completely open mind. This can be found on page 85. Evans continues by saying that a historical fact is something that happened in history and can be verified by such through traces of history has left behind. On page 96, this is the clarification that needs to be had on this topic of historical truth. The historical truth is made by copious amounts of documents in which historians can provide that an event did happen and that historians can reconstruct the past in events and time. But another aspect that Evans brings up is that historians have to have an open mind and shed all prejudices when writing history. Another topic that Evans brings up is that historians use documents to establish discrete facts, but as evidence for establishing larger patterns and construct them. These are patterns, these connections already were waiting to be discovered by a neutral process of cognition. Or do historians put them there themselves? Let's stop right here before we move on. And reading the rest of the quote, Evans in this passage is saying that historians use historical documents to see little facts that documents display, but rather show that historical connections and a large meaning in history that they have. The big question that he asks is, do historians put them there themselves? I do not find this all problematic. Historians are only looking for the larger picture of meaning of documents and seeing how they connect with each other. The quote continues by saying that some writers in history have argued that historians are deceiving themselves if they imagine their documents to be a kind of transparent window through which larger truths about the past become visible. So great, they suggest, are the problems in which documents present the traditional conventions of historians that they can get their facts right and reach through the sources of essential truth. Beyond is completely misled. This can be found on page 102. The passage here is very correct in historical interpretation of historical sources and how they can show historical truth. Evans points out a significant aspect of what historians should not do, which only use one of the few sources that says that historical truth. This is a mistake that you have to read as a historian many articles, primary sources, and throughout this you will eventually get at historical truth, an accurate representation of a period. But there is a criticism with this point of view, that all historical documents are always written from someone's point of view, with a specific purpose and audience in mind, and unless we can find all, we might be misled. Too often claims is that historians unwillingly carry the bias of such documents directly into their own writings. All historians, moreover, must more or less blindly encounter the problem of relations of the past, whereby the process at work and the object is studying accurately in their displacement analogs in the historical account. This can be found on page 103. This might be a problem in the study in history to be unseasoned professional historian, but reading history has to be always a mindful eye who is writing the document and why. Evans' grasp and the full concept of historical truth is that truth is sometimes hard to come by, and with a cautious eye and a mindful reading in the multitude of historical sources, you might be able to find a glimmer of historical truth. Sometimes the hardest thing in life are things everyone wants, and for historical truth, there is no exception to the rule.